Got to begin with that breaking news. It's the tentative deal to end the CN rail strike. Arthi Pohl is on the story. Details still coming out. No real hard, elements of that deal just yet. But what have you got?
Right. So what we do understand is that they have reached a tentative agreement between the Teamsters Union and with the Canadian National Railway. This was the 8th day of this ongoing work stoppage. In fact, the longest work stoppage in this capacity involving CN Rail in a decade. Again, as Suhana mentioned there, we don't know a lot of details in regards to this tentative agreement. We know that much of the sticking points that workers were talking about here were fatigue problems, safety issues, better hours. Those were some of the issues that we know workers were saying that they were trying to fight with the company about. But this appears that perhaps some of those issues have been discussed and a compromise of some sort that was agreeable to both sides was made. Part of the reason why we don't have a lot of the details right now is because members of the union and the workers that have been on strike need to take a look at all of the details. So there's going to be meetings that are going to be held across the country so that workers can take a look at this tentative agreement and then vote on it and that sort of thing. But we do know that workers will be back on the job 6 a.m. local time tomorrow. That will be the end of the work stoppage. Following that, we know that the tentative agreement must now be ratified. That process will take some time, up to 7 to 8 months, in fact, is what we're hearing, several months at least. Now, we do have part of the excerpt from the president of the union to share with you here. This is what they said in the statement that was issued, saying, "I'm pleased to announce that we've reached a tentative agreement with CN. I would like to thank our members for their incredible courage and solidarity." Going on to say here that they would also like to thank all of the Teamster local unions from across different industries, all the labor organizations and member of the public who supported us on the picket line. Again, that was an 8-day work stoppage, and now that will come to an end at 6 a.m. tomorrow. A tentative agreement yet to be ratified, but at least we know that for example, cargo, propane shortages, all of these impacts that we know people have been talking about because of this, some alleviation there will happen tomorrow.
All right. Thanks for that, Arthi.
You're welcome.
8 days of a strike. It does have an economic impact. We've got Susan Prince with us looking at what this means now that there is a tentative agreement, Susan.
That's right. And what we'll be shifting to as we take a look at this is the economic impact on Canada's GDP as we move into the fourth quarter. Now, there's very little wiggle room in the GDP right now when the Bank of Canada estimates the growth to be about 1.3%. Now, that estimate was made before the strike happened. And to give it some context, in 2012, when CP had a strike that lasted about 12 days, that had an impact on Canada's GDP, even though the rail lines are only about 0.5% of overall GDP, because it's like a stone rippling out because jobs are lost or people are not working during the strike, and that has happened in this case. So what we're going to see next is people going back to work, goods and services being shipped out. But now the economists are really going to focus on what the impact was. If it had been estimated, if it had gone on into the beginning days of December, that it would have been a $3 billion loss to the Canadian economy. Thankfully, it's winding up sooner than that, and now the economists will be taking a look at just exactly what it does mean for Canada's fourth quarter, and that will have an impact on people's outlook on the markets. Suhana?